So in Unit 4 here in this video, we're going to look at materials. So I'm going to look at 3 different ways to work with the material editor in Max. First thing we're going to look at is one of the materials that came in from Revit. So we're going to look at a roof material that came in. We're not getting a preview of this material. So first we've got to verify that there is a material attached to this object. So I right click over the roof and I'm going to go into Object Properties. So first left click to select the roof, right click, and then Object Properties from the quad menu here. And from this dialog box I can see the material name towards the top there. It says roofing, wood, shake. So this material was added to the object back in Revit and was imported in here to 3D Studio Max. So now that I know there is a material there, because I can't see it, I just hit M on my keyboard. I want to pull that material into my material editor so I can actually change it. So I'm going to click on the little eyedropper icon here. And the purpose of this eyedropper, I can click on that, just left click, and then I can click on any object and the material will be added to the material editor. So now I can see after clicking on the roof there, on the material name in the material editor, it says roofing, wood shake. I got a preview of it in my material slot there so I could see everything. Still can't see it in the viewport though. If I click on this button here, it's like a blue and white cube. I can see the material's there, but it's just tiled improperly, just not fitting right. So I got to make some changes. So under diffuse map here, under physical qualities, notice there's a JPEG, shake2.jpg, just a JPEG file. This was imported in from Revit. I need to make changes to it to make it fit onto my roof here. So these are some of the settings that you can work with. So let's take a look at what that material looks like, what that image file looks like, just a JPEG. So under bitmap parameters, I'm going to click on View Image. This will actually give me a preview or just a look at what the image looks like. So for this particular material, I've got a couple of rows, some of these tiles, and I just want to repeat those often a certain amount of time on the roof there to make it fit properly. So I close out of there. That was just to preview it. Now I actually want to do some settings to make that material fit on my object. So the first thing I'm going to do under coordinates here is use real world scale. Now I have to know the real world size of what that image contained. So for this particular JPEG I have here, I know approximately the size, so the width, I'm not going to work with any offsets here, but under size here, under width, I'm going to change that. I know the width in the real world would be about 4 foot 6 inches. So that image we were viewing is approximately, if I looked at it as a real world object, is approximately 4 foot 6 inches, and the height about 1 foot 6 inches. As soon as I make those size changes, notice in my viewport there, it's tiled more often. So it's fitting the material on there better. It's kind of hard to see now because we're zoomed out so far. Pretty decent job. It's got the tiles on there. They're not on there very realistically though. Like the edges of that roof object there, basically the image is just a flat image, just kind of put right on the object. It's not fitting the object geometry. Well, there's a modifier we can use to fix that. So I have my roof selected, going under Modify, at the Modify panel. And under the modifier list, the modifier I want to add is the map scaler. Map scaler is going to take a look at the object geometry and it'll do its best to fit that particular texture we're using. So I'm going to click on map scaler. And notice as soon as I apply that, I'm just going to left click on it. Now those tiles are fitting properly. Now this particular image just worked pretty well just with the default settings, but notice I could have a scale setting. The U and V offset would be an X and a Y direction offset, but that's pretty decent fit. But I could change any of those parameters if I had to. It's pretty typical that you do have to change those default settings. So my tile material is set, so that's one way to work with materials in Max here. Another way is to bring in your own image file. So let's look at this particular column here. So this column, we want it to be concrete. And let's say I have a JPEG of concrete. I have an image file I want to use. So I'm hitting M. Notice here the default is an Arch and Design material because we're in Mental Ray. Again, I'm using my eyedropper, and I'm going to click on that column. So there is actually a material from Revit that was brought in. Now this was a procedural map, a different type of material. It comes in as an architectural type of material, which is an older architectural type. Under diffuse map, notice this time I don't have a JPEG or any image file attached to it. A procedural map from Revit isn't going to bring that in. So I have to provide an image file. So under diffuse map there, I'm going to click on none, make sure it says browse from new from the map browser, and just double click on bitmap. So this is any image file, could be any file format, could even be a Photoshop file format. It's just an image you've used or scanned or pulled off the internet, wherever you got them from. So this particular concrete I'm going to use here, I'm going to click on this, it's just a JPEG. And this is just a particular type of stone I'm going to use here. So it's just literally just an image of that particular type of stone. I'm going to open that up. So now since I was in that diffuse map slot, this is basically where I just was before with that previous material. I'm going to preview it in my viewport by clicking on that blue and white cube there. So it's looking pretty good. Again, I'm going to use real world scale like I did with the last material. And I just know that, oh, this image file I had is approximately 6 foot in width. And I can say the height is about 3 foot 6 inches. And that's just going to make that image file. And again, you typically have to either know that number or experiment with it to get the concrete or to get the image to fit stone or concrete in this particular instance. And you can see all the other different settings that are in here. All I changed on this particular one, though, was the size. Notice on the right, kind of middle here, that little black arrow. When I click on that, it brings me back up to the parent. Basically, it's just a hierarchy. And I can get back and change other settings like shininess, transparency. Since it's an architectural type material, I can add these other things. Bump and displacement maps can add further texture by adding other JPEGs to it. For now, though, we're just going to leave that particular material on there. So in part 2 of the video, we'll look at another method of working with the material editor.